Alright, let's not mince words here, guys. VersusPro have not had a great year so far in CS2. They've failed to win any major tournament, they've had a roster change about midway through with the acquisition of Electronic from Cloud9, but even after that, they have failed to produce anything in the way of notable playoff runs or make any finals appearances. They are certainly much better than teams on the outside looking in, and so the question remains, can this VersusPro team turn it around in the back half of 2024 and try and acquire some hardware? The big problem is, if you ask me, I don't think they can do it. I think VersusPro are cooked, I don't think they are able to win trophies with this current lineup, and they won't be making any significant runs this year with this lineup. So today we're going to be breaking down the woes of VersusPro, the issues around the Electronic signing and how it's turned into one of the biggest busts of the year, and what VP need to do if they want to try and turn it around and become a true threat. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, and many of you who watch these videos are not subscribed, so make sure you do it. While you are down there, consider becoming a channel member for $5 a month. You can support me directly in what we do here, gain access to normal uploads like this one the night before anyone else, as well as a shout out at the end of every video. And lastly, check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/LionHeartZ1337. I stream Sunday through Friday at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so make sure you drop on by and say hello. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So looking at VersusPro's stats so far for the season, they're pretty much the stereotypical gatekeeper. They're really good at beating down on teams outside of the top 10 and into tier 2. They do well at these tier 2 tournaments, but then they rock up to the big boys and suddenly things start to fall apart. I mean, early on in the year, they're out here winning tournaments like the Rubek Cup, coming in second at the Bedboon Dacha 2023, winning ESL Challenger Atlanta, and then they do well in the group stages as well. They win their groups in the Blast Premier Spring, they win their groups for the Major, and once we get to Copenhagen, that's where we really start to see a schism in who VersusPro are. Not only after this would they soon sign Electronic over Mir, but obviously at the Major itself, you really have to feel like VersusPro were unlucky. That infamous Inferno game against G2, James crashes, they end up going on to lose that game in the series, where instead they were in full control of that round when he crashes out. I would argue that VersusPro were going to win that round, and if they do, they take the map, they go on to win the series, and when you look at the rest of the Major run that G2 had to go in their place over, there's a fair argument that VersusPro would have made a run deep into the tournament and potentially straight to the finals. Maus were looking vulnerable, they weren't the Maus that would go on to start making a run at the #1 spot in the world after the Major, and Na'Vi were definitely beatable. They were by no means the strongest team in the tournament. And the stats at Copenhagen were pretty good too. VersusPro were a very highly ranked team for the tournament. James was having a great performance himself. So when we come through after the fact, they get rid of Mir, who's their worst performing player. They bring in Electronic, obviously a superstar Russian talent, one of the best players in the world for many years, and crucially, a new aggressive element to help with the overall passive VersusPro playstyle. I made a video at the time when the signing happened that this could be the start of VersusPro being like a potential best team in the world. And we all know what happens after the fact. It's pretty much just mediocre early playoff exits for the rest of the year for VersusPro, and along the way, there are some truly disaster class games. Games where I'm just scratching my head wondering what the hell was happening. How was this the team that in some games looks unstoppable, but then turns around and looks utterly incompetent? It's so perplexing. It's to the point now where obviously in one of my last tournament coverage videos on VersusPro, I'm all the way out on this team. I have no faith in them to make any kind of deep run in any tournament because they don't look like a serious team. They don't play together. Their CT sides are so sloppy, they're so disjointed, and most of all, they're not getting the frags. When you look at the individual stats for the back half of this year, the last 3 months, this team looks thoroughly mediocre. And listen, sometimes I can be a little bit of a stat merchant and just point at the ratings and be like, see, look, my point is correct. But again, the numbers definitely don't lie. The team barely averages above a 1.0 rating. And that's just not good enough to win these tier 1 events. Add on to that, so far Electronic has struggled to find his form, Norbert has been on a decline since the Major himself, James and Flit are by far the best pieces of the team still, but even then, they are very much game to game, series to series in terms of what you can expect out of them. And all that is despite them having one of the better T-sides in the world right now. I couldn't believe this when I first heard this, but I was listening to Hot Takes Point Made, Maui Snake, Kassad, and Thorn. They were talking about the Electronic signing and how much of a bust he was, and Maui Snake brought up an interesting point. If you go and look at the stats of all the top 20 teams in the world in terms of how they're doing their CT versus T side, VersusPro has one of the most successful T sides in the game right now. So it's really their CT side that continues to let them down, and I think the eye test holds that up. When I watch this team play, their T sides to me, they aren't always the best. I still think they're a little too quick to save, They're definitely better, and they're definitely much better at pushing the pace when they need to, which is when I think they look at their best. The CT sides, however, look dreadful. They look very uncoordinated, they don't look like the teams are working together very well, it feels very individualistic, and when the individuals don't work, the CT side crumbles. It feels like you'll see players like Electronic trying to take space at the wrong time, he gets caught out, suddenly your anchor is going to fall apart, you have Norbert trying his best to hold sites, he's not able to do it, and then as soon as this team gets into any kind of disadvantage, this is the most damning part about VP to me, is their propensity to save on the CT sides. I would love for somebody to do the digging on this, but if I had to take a guess, I would assume that VersePro has the highest save rate out of any CT side in the top 20 right now. And that is to say, they save too much. And listen, I get it. On one hand, we all know how bad the CT economy can be. So in theory, playing it safe and trying to hold on to your economy makes a lot of sense. However, I have seen multiple times in recent tournaments VersePro concede more than adequate chances at going for retakes to opt for the save at the first sign of any kind of resistance. And at a certain point, I think the cost benefit of going for the save starts to run out. At a certain point, you have to try and go for the round wins. You're bleeding time versus bleeding money, and I would much rather bleed money for the potential to win a round, because you never know when winning a round is the difference between breaking the economy or not. To be clear, I'm not saying that James needs to go for every 1v4 that he's faced with or face execution. No, but there's plenty of 2v3s, 3v3s, these situations where VersePro might not be at such a drastic disadvantage, but they still opt to save instead, where I think they're leaving rounds on the table and that hurts them in the long run. What is also hurting them in the long run is the signing of Electronic. I have to take it back. As positive as I was about signing Electronic, thus far it's borne no fruit, and frankly the team has looked less coordinated pre-Electronic than it has post-Electronic. Right out the gate, Electronic has not played to the level that we would expect of him. He has not been able to get back to that superstar production that we would know him to bring. And when you combine his aggressive playstyle with bad production, what you get is someone who has a horrible kill differential and is dying very early into rounds without contributing much to the team. Now again, this is less a criticism of his T-side play. While I still think he's taking some bad peaks here and there, overall his T-side production is much better than his CT side, and there I think he makes for a great dynamic entry for the team. He's great at taking space, and when it's working, it gives a great new option to VP to work around the margins and let James cook with the op. What worries me the most about Electronic is his potential clashing with the VersePro system. Well, yes, I've been heavily critical of James as the in-game leader, but let me be very clear that I don't think Electronic making the switch to in-game leader would be any kind of better. And if you're wondering why the hell VP would even be considering Electronic to move to in-game leader, well, James did a podcast appearance not that long ago that kind of got lost in the news cycle, where he was talking about how Electronic, maybe we might consider moving him to in-game leader, and how he's very opinionated and keeps trying to push for his system to be the one that the team runs with. And this is kind of the problem with Electronic that we've seen since he's left Navi. Electronic built his career in the Blade system. He's used to Blade being either his in-game leader or his coach for the entirety of his successful career. So he knows the Blade system in and out. He knows that he's successful within the Blade system, and he thinks the Blade system is the correct way to play the game. However, Blade is no longer here. Blade is not here to create that system in another team. So it's Electronic taking what he knows about the Blade system and trying to force it into other teams. Infamously, he tried to do this in Cloud9, didn't work. He's trying to do it again in VersePro, and I hope to God he doesn't get the ability to, because this is not the same team, it's not the same coach, and it's not the same system. It's not going to work. Electronic needs to calm down with trying to usurp every in-game leader he possibly sees to try and become mini Blade and focus on integrating into the system that's already around him. While I have criticisms of the way that VP runs their team currently, there's no doubt that whatever they're doing now would be better than allowing Electronic to take the reins of power and completely tear down whatever they've built up. And I really hope this boils down to James just being a very humble, very down-to-earth guy and just kind of humoring his new teammate. But James, make no mistake, dude, you're the guy who needs to be in charge right now unless you guys find another in-game leader to replace a different player. The solution is not to go to Electronic, not at all. So as of right now, as we begin to exit the player break and resume tournament play, not only is Virtus.pro inconsistent from an individual perspective, they appear to be having issues in terms of integration and style. Meanwhile, the other teams around them in the top 10 have either made roster changes or had time to retool, rest, and recuperate, so I don't believe there is any shot right now with what we've seen for Virtus.pro to make a serious run in a Tier 1 event. I've seen nothing from this team that indicates that they're going to be able to make those changes in such a short amount of time. They of course didn't make any roster moves or trying to fix some issues, so unless we see some kind of big 180 where Electronic and Jam can return to form, produce more, and the team look more cohesive on the CT sides, there is no doubt in my mind that Virtus.pro are absolutely cooked and will not win a tournament in 2024. But I do hope I'm wrong. What do you guys think about Virtus.pro? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll be responding to everyone as usual. Do you think there should have been a roster change? Do you think Electronic needs different roles on the CT side? Would you give up on Jame as the in-game leader and give Electronic a shot? Who knows? Let me know what you're feeling in those comments down below. And while you're down there, make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Shout out to my channel members, Justin, Jesse, Furley, Bubblesj, and of course Dr. Cocktor. And this video was powered by Advanced.gg. I am an ambassador for Advanced.gg, so if you're looking for a nice, healthy, keto, and diabetic-friendly energy supplement, you're looking for hydration options, sleep options, multivitamins, Advanced.gg has you covered. So check out their website, and if you order anything, use my code LionHeartZ10 at checkout for 10% off, and it lets them know that I sent you their way. Other than that, my name is LionHeartZ. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you soon with another video. Peace.